Welcome back to another keyboarding lesson brought to you by Mr. Dick. And again, yeah, Mr. Lower is gone, but he was here for the last video, and so we're passing the torch here. Today we're going to be looking at nested if formulas, and so let's get at it. You already looked at if statements, and so let's go even deeper. So we're going to be putting if statements within if statements. So I have a couple sheets set up here. So the first one is the following here. Imagine that you want to determine whether you were going to pass or fail. So maybe you're a teacher and you want to say, here's a couple of your students. And as you know, you need 55 hours in order to pass. And so for the fitness side of things, you need 55 hours. So if we were to just say just based on fitness alone, are you going to pass or fail? We can set up an if statement for that, where we say, okay, equals if, and we want to look at column B here and say, well, if B2 is going to be greater than or equal to 55. So the first one is your argument. The following is, well, if it's true, what happens? So if it's true, we pass. If not, you fail. And so that's your formula here. This argument is if this value over here in B2 is greater than or equal to 55, you're going to pass. And so now we can drag this along here. And as you can see, obviously the B5, B6, B7, these change because they're not absolute values. And so you see for this one here, you're at 55, so you pass. All the other ones at 55 or above, you pass. Now, the thing is that you not only need to have your hours here, but you also need to have your health mark above a 50 as well. And so you're going to have an extra condition here. And so when you have an extra condition, you're going to have to include that within your if statement. So it's going to be a little bit more complicated. Let's take a look at what that would look like. It's going to include and. So you started off the same way. You start off with your if statement, equals if, and then we're going to have two qualifiers. They're going to need to have their 55 hours, and you're going to have a health mark above 52%. So there's going to be two qualifying statements here. So if and, now two things here. First part is B2 has to be greater than or equal to 55. The second part is that D2 has to be greater than or equal to 50%. Make sure that if these are all columns with percents, that you're also putting a percent in there. So here is our argument now. It's one big argument. And so the argument is and the whole thing there. And we can follow this up with, well, what's our true statement? Our true statement again is going to be pass. And our false, our false statement is going to be, it's going to be a fail. And so now we can click and drag this as well. And what you notice is that there's going to be one piece of information right over here, so we could highlight this if we wanted to, where it was a pass, they got their hours, but they didn't get their health mark up, and so they ended up failing the course. And so you can see the difference between these two. There's not a lot, but the big difference is this and qualifier. So you can have an and to add on to something so that when there's two criteria and you need both of them to be true in order for the statement to follow through. So that's one example of a nested if statement. Let's take another look here. In this example here, I just randomly created this. We have temperature in Celsius, or we have a variety of temperatures outside. And there's this guy named Jack who has a certain criteria in which he chooses to go outside or not. And so he's very picky. And it goes like this. He says, yeah, I'll go outside if the temperature's greater than 20 or more without a jacket. So comfortable, it's nice out there. If the temperature is between 10 and 20 degrees, he's going to go outside, but he'll take a jacket with him. And if it's less than 10 degrees outside Celsius, he's just going to stay inside. And so we're gonna have to come up with some criteria of what does this actually look like if we were to come up with an if statement here. There's three separate things. So there's something that's greater than, there's one that's in between everything, and then there's one that's even less than everything. And let's just get at her. So like all if statements, you begin with equals if bracket. We're going to be wanting to look into this cell right over here to determine, well, okay, well, what is the temperature like for all of these things here? Is it less than 10? Is it between 10 and 20? Is it greater than 20? And so I like to start off with the values that are the largest and then continue just to linearly go down. So I'm going to start with this one right over here. If it's equal to 20 or if it's greater than or equal to 20. And so that's the way you want to word it too. Your greater than sign has to be before your equal sign. So if B2 is greater than or equal to 20 degrees outside, we will know that we can say that he's going to go outside. And we could say without jacket if we wanted to. The next part is going to be your false statement. So if this piece is not true, the program is going to check in to say, oh, okay, well, if it's not true, what's going to happen? So the nested if statement is we're going to now put another if in here. So for this comes out to be false, which in this case it is. 10 degrees is not greater than or equal to 20. So it's going to continue checking this statement as you go along. So we have another if, open the brackets here, and now we can have the next piece of information here. The next one said that he'll wear a jacket if it's between 10 degrees and 20 degrees. And so equal to 10 or greater than. So again, we're going to go B2, and we're going to say greater than or equal to 10. And you can do this one of two ways. You can have the and statement in there where it's between 10 and 20, but let's be real here. It just finished checking to see, is it greater than 20? If it's not, now it continues checking. So by saying if it's greater than or equal to 10 for the second part right over here, it actually will be put in between 10 and 20 because the first part was already checking more than 20. This one is now going to be checking 10 all the way up until 20. And so we can go ahead and continue on. So this is our statement. Now the true part to this is going to be that you're going to find him outside with the jacket. And now we have another false statement. So if statement 1 greater than 20 or equal to 20 is not true, if statement 2 over here is not true, then we have the last piece to be false over here. And what's that going to be? He's going to stay inside if both of these criteria are not fulfilled. And now here you just have to make sure that you put enough brackets. And often when you click on a bracket, it will like highlight the other bracket here. So the second bracket here highlights this one here. We have to make sure to close all of our brackets. So one for this one for this one. We hit enter and we find out that yes, he's outside with the jacket because it's between 10 and 20. We can highlight this and go over here. So it's less than 10. He's staying inside. Outside with jacket, outside with jacket, outside without jacket because it's above 20. And that's the way that that this one works right over here. So it's becoming a tiny little bit more complicated in a little bit of a different way. The first one you looked at ands, and now we're looking at, okay, well, if it's between this and this, what do you do? If it's between this and this, what do you do? And so just make sure that that when you are typing words, that you have the brackets, well, not brackets, the quotations in between the words that you're typing, et cetera, et cetera. But it follows the same thing. You have your statement or your argument. You have your true, like what happens if it's true, what happens if it's false. And so it'll just continue checking as you go along. All right, let's take a look at third piece here. So of course, I worked at Dairy Queen, so why not have some examples from Dairy Queen here? So completely made up here. We have a couple items, some Blizzard coffee fries. This is the cost to purchase these items. Again, made up. I don't know what it actually costs. And the business owner wants to mark up the price, like the cost that they spend, to actually say, well, what's it going to cost the consumer to purchase this item? So this is like the markup cost here. how much is it going to be increased in price here? And so let's go ahead and do that first. And so the way it's going to work is that you can have any one of these possible items. So these items are going to correlate to the markup. So for Blizzard, it's 70%. For coffee, it's 80%. For fries, it's 25%. All right. And so, because imagine that there was like maybe other items or maybe even general things like instead of having coffee here, let's just have like drinks or something like that. And then maybe let's just have sides. So it could be fries or onion rings or whatever else. So that if you had like a list down below of a variety of things, whatever that might be, then you could then determine what the sale price is. Because it could go beyond just this. We could even have this that grouping right over here, just to not confuse it with something else. So maybe we now have Oreo Blizzard over here, and we have whatever else, Pepsi, and then we have fries, something like that. Okay, I forgot one little thing here. So let's just go ahead and add that in there. So specific item, and then we can go with category. And so, yeah, this is going to be the Blizzard, this will be the drink, and this will be the side. All right, sale price. What is our sale price going to look like? So again, we're going to start with our if statement here. And I'm curious as to why it's doing that. Okay. So if it's the Blizzard category, for example, and we're going to say, well, what's our sale price going to be? Well, the sale price is a 70% markup on this $2 here. So if the category ends up being Blizzard, what's going to happen? And so we're going to have to say, well, if C2 equals Blizzard, what's our true statement going to be? Well, it's going to be that we're going to have a markup of 70%. And we're going to be using this value every single time. So you could either, if you're going to be finding it here and using that, the actual cell, you're going to need to use the absolute value there. Or you could just type in 70%. So here we have, all right, true statement, 70% of this value. So we're going to multiply it by this one right over here. So if you know your math though, what's going to happen here is that you would only find your actual discount. And so if you want to know what your actual price is, you're going to have to go 70% and then add the original value that you purchased it at, so that D2. So it's going to be plus your original D2. This is your first true, first statement there. So that's if it's true. That's searching for Blizzard. If it's not Blizzard, well, now we go ahead and open up a new one. So if it's not Blizzard, what's it going to be? We're going to say that C2 over here, if it is equal to, say, drinks. What happens now? Well, here we have an 80% discount. So we're going to punch 80% and make it absolute value. You can do that by hitting the F4 button. If you have it set up that way, for whatever reason, mine works like that. If not, make it absolute. We're going to multiply that by D2 again. And then remember, don't forget to also add D2. Now, if it was searching under this column here and it couldn't find Blizzard, it couldn't find drinks, it could always be the last one there. And if there is only 3 columns, you could actually just go straight to your false statement over here. But let's just go and do if one more time, just in case if all of a sudden we wanted to add more categories, then we could always do that later on. So in this case, if C2 is equal to sides in this case, what's going to happen this time? It's going to be 25% and make it absolute, multiplied by D2 and then plus D2. And so again, that's your true statement. And your false statements, let's just leave it blank. And so at this point, we're going to start closing our brackets. And here we go. We get a value of $3.40. And if you know math, you'd be able to figure that out as well. So 70% of $2 is $1.40 plus your original cost price gives you $3.40. So the math checks out there. And so on. So for this one here, the drinks, 80% of 50 is 40 cents, 40 plus 50 is 90 cents. So it seems to be working out nicely. So we've been able to calculate it out there. And so again, like, it looks really, really complicated, but you just have to really break it down. So it starts off, again, we could zoom in a little bit. Starts off with your first true statement. If we're searching for a blizzard, then we say, what's our markup? It's 70%. And so again, we could have had this being 70% as well, and it would have turned out a proper value too. It should have anyways. So if we had gone like this and gone 70%, you still see it being 340 right over there. So here you see 70%, and it's still going to work out, and it should work out for these ones as well, as it does. So if you're not needing to reference a specific cell, you could always just include whatever the percent is going to be, and then you find that it's the same for each of those as well. All right. Hopefully that I guess clears up anything that needs to be cleared up there. Something else that comes up in the assignment too is just a refresher on the dated if. All right. So a couple things here. If we want to know what today's date is, we can just go equals today, hit enter, enter, and today's date pops up, May the 19th. Next, how old the product is. Maybe we want to say, well, how long has it been in the shelf for? Because at some point, maybe we want to put it on sale, get rid of it before it expires. So we want to know how old the product is. We're going to be using the dated if statement, and the way that works is you go equals dated if. You start with the start date. So when did you receive this item? So we received it on May the 1st, this blizzard. When is the end date, aka today? This value we're going to be using for all of them. So again, you want to make it absolute. I hit the F4 button. And then your units. And so output choices, you had already learned this before, or should have, by searching online. These are some of the shorthands. We want days, so it's going to be equals uppercase D, or sorry, quotes, and then close this. This is now telling us that for 18 days now, this product has been in our possession, and this one for 15, and this last one for 39. And so what we could do with that is maybe set some type of bar saying, well, okay, it's on sale if product has been around for more than 15 days, let's say. So not equal to 15, but more than 15 days. So if we say equals if this one right over here is greater than 15, then it's going to be sale, and the false one would be it's going to still be at regular price. And so we have one of them at regular price because it's just at the limit there, and the other ones would be on sale there. And so that's one way to kind of work it out, is to go this route here where you already know the number. I believe there's a second way where it becomes a tiny bit more complicated, where you wouldn't need this column at all. You would need column G. And what you could do is you start with your if statement, and then your argument is actually going to be the dated if, and then you now plug in all the information that you normally would. So what's your start date? What's your end date? So we have our start date right over here. We have our end date right over here. And so again, this end date is going to be the absolute value. And then our last piece there is we want it in days. So now we have our true statement here, the dated if this entire thing right over here is greater than 15, what's going to happen? It's going to be on sale, and the false one is going to be regular. And so this looks a little bit more complicated. So if I was you, I would probably just create a new column to figure out what the dated if, how many days the product's been in wherever it is. But if not, again, nested if statements, you can add ifs, add things, add criteria all into your if statement. So let's just run this through one more time. What do? We said, well, if this specific statement here is saying, well, how many days are we calculating here? So we used a formula here, the dated if statement, to calculate how many days that we had these products for by saying, first of all, the start date, then what's the end date, aka today, followed by, well, what do we want to measure it in? So we want to measure it in days. And we said, okay, this value here, if it's greater than 15, then we're going to put that item on sale. And if that's not true, then it's going to be at the regular price. And the last thing you could always do too is, and this is something we've done before too, you highlight something, you right click it, and we can do some conditional formatting. So it doesn't show up fully. How do we do that? Can we drag it over? 1 second. All right, I just had to readjust the screen here. So let's get to it here. So we have a range that we're going to apply, so H2 to H4. Format rules. We're going to say, well, if it contains a specific text here. So if the text contains, and then we could say the value here, if it contains sale, then we can actually do whatever we want it to do. Maybe we want to highlight it a specific color then, and whatever it needs to be. And so as you can see, then here it is. And so if we change this to sale, boom, all of a sudden it formats to that color here. If we change this to regular, the formatting for this color goes away like that. So that's another just fancy little thing you can do. So again, the way to do that is you just highlight whatever you need, right click, and then it's going to be that conditional formatting near the bottom there. And then you can add more rules if you need to. This rule was just saying if it contains sale, then this is what it's going to do. And you could always add more things to that. Hopefully that explains the majority of what you're going to be looking at here. We're going to at some point dive even deeper into what other kinds of things you can do with nested if statements. So the world is your oyster. It gets even more than this. So good luck, have fun. Let me know how things go.